Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted as always to be joined by Gregory Dial. Greg, this is a video looking back at the Chris Eubank Jr versus Liam Smith fight back earlier this year. Happened in Manchester. We're looking forward to the rematch now. Only a few days away, depending on when you're watching this video, of course. It was a short-lived fight, wasn't it? Fourth round stoppage for Liam Smith. We've done these videos before and we've had to kind of analyze 12 rounds. This time it's only 4 rounds. It was quite early in the fourth round, that stoppage. So it wasn't a particularly long fight back in January. Cast your mind back to that night in Manchester. I know most people fancied Eubank Jr. Not everybody did, but your thoughts on that fight and how it happened.
Thanks so much for having me, Elliot. So many things I want to say about that fight. Number one is I'm so glad that you're not allowed to bet your house on fights, because if somebody told me that Liam Smith was going to stop Chris Eubank, I would have said absolutely no chance. Liam Smith had a great chance of winning the fight as much as Eubank did. I thought it was maybe a 60-40 in favour of Eubank, but there was no way I thought he was stopping Chris Eubank, so I was very surprised like everyone else, Elliot.
Yeah, absolutely. I can just repeat what you've said. Just a massive shock. It was one of those moments when I think a lot of people watching would have just been there with their mouths wide open, kind of in disbelief at what they've just seen. Eubank, obviously, fantastic reputation for having a great chin, and chin didn't hold up back in January. Going to look at 3 key moments from that fight, Greg. Not difficult to do because there's not too many key moments to pick from, but we've done it nonetheless. First of all, kind of we've analysed the first round. I think I'll let you take it away, but like in terms of like this key moment of the fight, what comes to mind when you look back at that first round?
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. When we're doing this kind of content, I love going back and watching the fights. You can remember a lot of fights clear in your head, but when you really try and break it down and analyse and you think what went well and what went wrong, early in round one, you noticed when, and I don't know if he was nervous about what was coming back, Elliot, but when Eubank was using the jab, he was pulling his head out quite high after he threw. And I think that Liam Smith identified that really early. Maybe he wasn't in a position to catch Eubank because he was maybe fresh, hadn't taken any punishment as yet. But for me, the first key point in the fight that I noticed a lot, and I actually think the commentators, they may have said something about it as well. He was just pulling his head out really high, and you just knew that that was something that Liam Smith was going to target.
Yeah. It's fair enough. Like first round's always interesting. Sometimes they're very tentative. I think. Look, if you look back at Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford, typical first round in the sense that not too much happens. Both fighters were kind of feeling each other out, and I feel like that's quite normal for especially for big fights in the first round. Whereas, yeah, in this one, you saw a bit more from both fighters. Moving on, next key moment we've looked at is the second round. I know you mentioned Smith started to counter Eubank and started to have some success. Yeah, talk me through what your thoughts were on that part of the fight.
Yeah, as I said, Elliot, I just think that Smith identified earlier that Eubank was pulling out quite high after
Yeah,
he was throwing the jab, and you noticed head and body. He was starting to counter with the right hand when Eubank threw his jab. As I say, head and body, it wasn't overly obvious that he was just head hunting, but as the fight wears on, Elliot, and people slow down, those are the shots that start landing. And it almost just felt like Liam Smith, he started to get familiar with throwing that shot because he knew it was a matter of time before it landed. Whether he knew it was going to hurt Eubank or not at that time, that's another matter. But it was just evident to me that he started to look to counter with that right hand every time Eubank threw the jab. So I think that was a really important bit of the fight.
yeah, absolutely. I think look, it would have been really interesting to kind of if we could pause a moment, kind of pause time at the end of the third round or the second round and say to yourself, other members of the group, people in boxing, right, what are your thoughts on those first 3 rounds and what do you think is going to happen? Obviously, we've not got the time, we've not got the time to do that, but I just think that those first 3 rounds were so fascinating because they maybe didn't go the way people thought they were going to. At the same time, I think people might have struggled to give a prediction because I don't think anyone kind of could have foreseen what was going to happen in that fourth round. Finally, Greg, got to talk about that finish. Came quite early in the fourth round. How would you break that finish down?
It was a fantastic finish. Liam Smith, regardless of what you think of the guy as a person sometimes, and I suppose you could say the same thing about Eubank, there's something so attractive about watching Liam Smith fighting. He keeps his guard really tight. You just know he'll fight anyone and he's going to give it a go no matter who he fights. And that finish in round 4 was just tremendous. I think when I watched it back again there, the commentators and a lot of people talked about the left hook. Now, Eubank takes the left hook on the glove, and obviously the power generates through the face and it carries through. But the more I'm thinking about it, when me and you are chatting about the first 2 key points, if you watch the finish, he throws a right hand, and Eubank is actually pulling out quite high against the ropes, and it's the right hand that really hurts him and buckles the legs. It's a tremendous finish. The way that he throws those shots, and the left hook finishes it off, I believe, to knock Eubank down. Elliot, I remember watching it live, and when you see Chris Eubank on the floor on his backside and his arm hanging over the second rope, you're just like, this surely hasn't happened. This is the guy that can't be hurt. But it was a tremendous finish, and I think it was a good stoppage from Victor Loughlin, because when Chris Eubank gets up and he lets the action continue, there's not a shot that seriously hurts Eubank, but he falls forward and you can see him still, really hurt. So when he stops the fight, I think it's the right decision. But fantastic shot selection from Liam Smith.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was a fantastic finish. Did you have any, obviously post-fight, there were accusations about the elbow. Did that do the damage? Did Liam Smith do it on purpose? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Do you know something, Elliot? It's weird because me and you haven't spoke about this when on the lead up to this video, but that was something that I did watch out for. And there is a clear elbow that does hit Chris Eubank. You can see it. I don't think it was intentional. Do I think it played a part? It's probably quite sore and probably helped with the punches and all that kind of thing. But I think that the damage was in the process of being done as the elbow lands. So I don't doubt for a minute that it hurt Eubank even more, but I don't think it was greatly relevant to the stoppage. I think that the damage had still been done.
Yeah, fair enough. Really enjoyed doing this video with you, Greg. Obviously, we've got other rematches coming up. Gilles Zhang versus Joe Joyce is one of them. We'll be doing another video for that, I'm sure. Final question from me to you. In a nutshell, how does Chris Eubank Jr. beat Liam Smith in that rematch?
He needs to be aggressive, Elliot, and he needs to go back to who Chris Eubank is. Throw fast, hard combinations. The uppercut was working a treat in the first match. For what it's worth, I had Eubank winning mostly everything up until the fourth round. I think maybe rounds 1 and 2 were close, but the volume and the punches landed seemed to come from Eubank more. But for me, Elliot, he needs to go behind a hard jab, and he needs to throw combinations starting to the body and finish to the head. But whether he does that or not is another question. But we need the old Chris Eubank back if he's going to win this fight.
Fantastic, Greg. Thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to September the 2nd. Lots more to unpack. Please do check out the rest of our content if you are watching this video. Greg, I will speak to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Elliot.